Welcome everybody to the Bushmills Masterclass. You know, this is something that I've been looking forward to since I found out about it through the importer earlier this month, because, you know, we all know the other brands. And, you know, we've known Bushmills for a while, but it's rarely do we get the opportunity to really learn about this particular brand in depth and how good it really is. As you said, you always hear about the other brand. We won't have to say that name. But this is truly different, not just from where it's at, but also how they do things. So I am so happy that you guys are attending, that I'm able to attend this and listen to not just one particular SKU, but 3 to go through the motions and all that. So I hope you guys are ready and excited. Now, besides, of course, learning more about Bushmills, there will be an offer we're going to announce later. Obviously, only the people attending on Zoom will get this offer. So for you on Facebook, if you guys are listening right now, please jump on the Zoom Masterclass. There's a link I put on earlier. And also, people attending will know, because they'll also will remember your names in the future, because there'll be always more events, and we can't let everyone at these events. So by you coming on, we'll know who to ask for later in advance before asking the general public. Anyways, I could go on forever, but you're not here to listen to me. You're here to listen to our friend from Bushmills. Rory, please take it away, buddy.
Thank you, Frank. That's a wonderful introduction. And I think you started on a good note when you said that we won't speak about that other Irish whiskey brand. I used to work for them too. What I will say is that I've been working for Bushmills now for about 2.5 years. And once you get introduced to this brand, you will absolutely fall in love with it, because it has something special for every type of whiskey consumer. We have a very wide and varied range of whiskey, which is very challenging in the upper levels. And we'll get to see that today in the case of the Bushmills 12-year-old. So very excited to be here with you today. And I'll tell you a little bit first about me and my experience in the industry, in whiskey in particular. I've been working in bars and in the industry for about 10 years now. Most of my time has been spent working in Irish whiskey. So I've had a great opportunity to get to drink and try lots of different types of whiskey brands, a lot of Irish whiskey, a lot of Scotch whiskey also. So today I hope to share my knowledge with you. I'm a bit of a whiskey nerd. So if you have any questions relating to Bushmills, relating to whiskey production in general, anything about whiskey, I'm here to answer your questions. And you can feel free to write in the chat box. You can also stop me at any time, or if you prefer, you can ask your questions at the end. Cool. All right, I'm going to share my screen for some part of the presentation, and some part I will just concentrate on the main event, which is, of course, the whiskey. Can everybody hear me okay? Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. And you can see my screen comfortably?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Great. So in terms of the running order for today, we will speak about Bushmills' history and heritage. Then we will speak about production, whiskey production in general, and also some points specific to Bushmills and Irish whiskey. We will then get introduced to the Bushmills range, and we'll taste 3 products. First, we'll taste Bushmills Original, our classic Irish whiskey. It's our entry-level product. Then we will move on to Black Bush, which is a very special blend of Irish whiskey, which is very well respected by people in the know, in Ireland in particular. It's kind of a cult brand. And then afterwards, we will try the Bushmills 12-year-old, which is a new product from us, and it's a triple wood whiskey. So it's aged first in a sherry and bourbon cask and finished in a marsala cask. So we'll get to try these 3 types of whiskey, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. I know you'll love the whiskey. So the first thing important to Bushmills is that Bushmills is in fact the world's oldest licensed whiskey distillery, which dates back to the 20th of April, 1608. So as you know, Irish whiskey, or whiskey in general, was founded in Ireland, and Bushmills has been a central part of this. There's a famous quote in Ireland. It says, "We're not good because we're old because we're good." Bushmills is still around 400 years later because of the quality of whiskey that Bushmills produces. By the way, this is a replica of the copy of the actual initial license to distill, which dates back to 1608. If we look then a little bit at history and the history of whiskey, there is a lot of debate, between Irish whiskey and Scotch whiskey about who first originated whiskey. The good news is that there is a phrase called Ishkabaha. It's an Irish term, and it means the water of life. This was the name given by Irish monks to distilled alcohol. So back in the 6th century, they were already producing beer in Ireland, and they played around. They wanted to challenge themselves and produce a stronger liquid, which is when they stumbled upon the production of Ishkabaha. And Ishkabaha evolved over time. So Ishkabaha became whiskey. And that's how whiskey was founded in Ireland in the 6th century. 10 centuries later, in 1608, Bushmills receives a license to distill. King James I grants a royal license to distill whiskey to the district that now includes the village of Bushmills. A couple of hundred years later, in the middle of the 19th century, a lot of distilleries were moving away from using malted barley in their mash bill. But Bushmills, being very perseverant and quite stubborn, we decided to stick to our grains. So despite a tax on malted barley that was introduced, while other Irish distillers changed their recipe, we did not. So at Bushmills, we produce whiskey, using only 100% malted barley. A few years later, the Bushmills distillery was burned down, but again, we came back, and we came back stronger than ever. In 1889, Bushmills received the first whiskey award at the Paris Expo. That's a picture of a Persian Shah who's enjoying Bushmills. In 1890, Irish whiskey demand was at its peak, so Bushmills built a steamship to sail around the world delivering whiskey casks. In 1913, Bushmills was doing very well in the US at the time. So here's an advert from 1913 in the New York Times, where Bushmills is advertised alongside the Ford Model T, one of the world's first cars. As you probably know, Prohibition and the Great Depression through the 1920s affected whiskey, and Irish whiskey in particular, very bad. It coincided with the growth of American whiskey, and it more or less almost wiped out Irish whiskey. But strong work on Irish whiskey over the last 30 years has meant that Irish whiskey is now very much back front and center. It's in strong growth and very popular across the US, Asia, and Africa. In 2008, Bushmills celebrated its 400th year, and the occasion was marked by having the Bushmills distillery on the back of the £5 note. So this is a banknote from Ireland, and it's still there. So if you come to Ireland, you will see that we have the Bushmills distillery on the back of the note. So that, I think, reflects the importance of Bushmills to Ireland and Irish whiskey. In 2015, Proximo, the current owners, acquired Bushmills. When we consider Irish whiskey, the thing about Ireland is that the Bushmills distillery is located in Northern Ireland, which is very close to Scotland, or for example, the island of Islay. So the good work on developing Irish whiskey and producing Irish whiskey in Ireland has influenced the production of whiskey in Scotland. So you will see some similarities between the architecture and the style of production that we have at other distilleries in Scotland, similar to in Bushmills. So the first thing to note with whiskey is that you need to select a grain. You must use one of 4 grains, and the most important one in our case is the use of malted barley, as this is what allows us to create the alcohol. So at Bushmills, we use 100% Irish malted barley. All of the malted barley is sourced from within 100 kilometers of the Bushmills distillery. So you might ask yourself, what is a single malt whiskey? So single malt whiskey refers to whiskey which is made exclusively from malted barley and produced at a single distillery. And that is the case in Bushmills. Another key point, obviously enough, from a whiskey perspective is the use of water. So in Ireland, we're blessed with a lot of clean and clear water. At Bushmills, there is a river called the River Bush that flows through Bushmills. So we have a readily available source of clean water for production of Bushmills. Once you have your water and your malted barley, you allow it to sit together in order to mash. So the mash of grist and water is heated and stirred and leaves a wort full of sugars and flavour. Our mash tun at the old Bushmills distillery runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For anybody that's into beer, you will know about fermentation. In whiskey, it's no different. So whiskey starts its life as a beer. Through the process of fermentation, we turn our non-alcoholic wort into an alcoholic wash. After the mashing process, the wort is allowed to cool back to room temperature. For one mash bill, we add 80 kilos of yeast to 48,000 litres of wort. And the yeast organism acts on the sugars in the wort to produce alcohol. After, you have a sweet smelling beer, which you call the wash, and it sits at between 7 and 9% alcohol by volume. In order to change this high strength beer into a whiskey or a spirit, you need to distill it, and that's what we do next. So when you speak about distillation, distillation is the art of separating water from alcohol. So we want to increase the level of alcohol in the liquid, which is why we distill. As you know, alcohol has a lower boiling point than water. Alcohol boils at 78 degrees Celsius, while water boils off at 100 degrees Celsius. So by heating these stills, the alcohol vapors will rise first and rise into the neck of the still. Meanwhile, the water will remain behind and it will move on to the next distillation. In Ireland, we generally distill our whiskey 3 times. With each distillation, the spirit becomes more refined, aromatic, and stronger in alcohol. The initial distillation harvests a liquid of 25% alcohol by volume. The second, 70%, and the third distillation, 85%. In whiskey, the distillate can be split into 3 parts. You have the head, which is the first part to evaporate, and often this is too light. It gets recycled back into the previous distillate. The heart of the spirit is what contains most of the flavor. That part is perfect and it proceeds to the next distillation. The tail tends to be quite oily and is not suitable for progressing to the next distillation. So that too is recycled into the previous distillation. So the heart is the most important part of the distillate. This is our master distiller. His name is Colm Egan. His role is about ensuring consistency of flavor in the distillation process. Irish whiskey is typically distilled 3 times, whereas Scotch and American whiskies are generally distilled twice. It is this 3rd distillation that gives Irish whiskey its distinguishable smoothness. So triple distilled whiskey, like Bushmills, tends to be smooth, balanced, and rounded in flavor. As you will know, an important point of the production process is the maturation. In Ireland, before we can call the spirit Irish whiskey, it needs to mature in wooden casks for at least 3 years and 1 day, the last day being for good luck. The new make spirit, after the distillation, is placed in oak casks to mature. At Bushmills, we have lots of different types of casks. The bourbon and sherry casks are what form the base of the whiskey, but we also have lots of different unusual types of casks. One example would be a Marsala cask, which we have used to produce the 12-year-old whiskey, which you will taste today. You will know about Angel's Share. When you first fill a cask, about 3% of the liquid will be instantly lost by soaking into the wood. Over the years, as the seasons wax and wane, the temperature and humidity will rise and fall. So the porous wooden cask literally breathes in and out. The higher the temperature in the air, the more evaporation. And that evaporation is called Angel's Share. So Bushmills pays its share to the Angels. Every year, a cask loses around 2% of its volume through evaporation. This loss is known as the Angel's Share. So one of the reasons why Irish whiskey and also Scotch are very successful is the fact that the temperature is quite cool. So while we lose 2% of the contents, if you were in a warmer climate, you would lose a lot more, and it wouldn't be possible to age the whiskey for as long as we do. So I mentioned about the different types of casks we use. Generally, in Irish whiskey and at Bushmills, we don't use many new casks. These casks are seasoned casks. They've already been used to age another spirit. So we use ex-bourbon casks. These are casks which earlier aged a bourbon whiskey, and a lot of ex-sherry butts. So butts is the term specific to sherry. Again, it's a cask. It tends to be much larger in size. It contains around 500 liters, and it comes from the south of Spain. So at Bushmills, we like to use a lot of sherry. Sherry casks are more expensive because sherry is not as widely available as bourbon is. So actually we have to pay a bodega or a winery in Spain to season the casks specifically for us in order to get the type of seasoned cask we are looking for. So you will see today, particularly in the case of Black Bush and in the 12-year-old, there is a lot of whiskey which is aged in sherry casks. And this gives delicious flavors of ripe fruits, dried fruits too, Christmas cake. You will taste that in the whiskey. An important part of whiskey production is the cooperage. This is a part of the production that is still very much done by hand. So there is an artisan craftsmanship in this work. If you ever get the chance to visit Bushmills, you will see that most people who live in the town are employed at the distillery. So if you get a job at Bushmills, you probably try to stay there for life. There are a lot of family combinations working at the distillery. In the case of the cooperage, you have these two guys, Alistair Kane and Chris Kane. In their family, the Kane family, there are about 150 years of service given to the Bushmills distillery. So this is a craft that often is handed down through generations. You can see that many of the distillery employees work their entire lives at Bushmills. These are some of the cooper's tools that we use. We can touch on those later as we're tasting the whiskey. I will talk you through how they are used to age the whiskey and withdraw whiskey from the cask. This is Helen Mulholland. The role of Helen is a much more creative role. Her role is about selecting the right types of casks in the right combinations in order to deliver a desired taste profile. She's been working at Bushmills for over 25 years, and she recently was inducted into the Whisky Magazine Hall of Fame, the first woman to do so. So a lot of the whiskies that we have at Bushmills were actually laid down by Helen when she was an apprentice there in the early 90s. An important point in the production of whiskey is what in French or in France you would call terroir, or the fact that the landscape influences significantly the maturation in particular. So because of the location of Bushmills being beside the ocean with clean air, a sea breeze, a salty breeze, this does influence the taste of the whiskey. Also, the quality of water and the rock formation that we have near Bushmills, which is known as the Giant's Causeway, influences the quality of the whiskey we have at Bushmills. So at that point, I'll pause for a minute. We will then start into the tasting, but I just wanted to check if you had any questions, anything you would like to discuss. What I've given is a top line introduction to the whiskey production process. If you have more specific or pointed questions, very happy to take them at this point.
Someone did ask, is the Bushmills 10 still around, or is that out of production? Or
Bushmills 10-year-old is still widely available, but in Asia, inclusive of the Philippines, we are focusing on the 12-year-old, which is a more evolved, elaborate taste profile, which we think is more suitable for whiskey connoisseurs and people who really know their whiskey. And in Asia, our strategy is very much on premiumization and on our single malt portfolio. So the game for us in Asia and in the Philippines really starts at 12 and above.
For me, I just thought about this. Why is Irish whiskey, or especially Bushmills, why does Irish whiskey specifically use triple distillation? Why is it famous for that, right? I mean,
yeah, and I think actually I see one of the questions popping up as well in the chat.
Oh,
related.
Oh, Mike.
I think, to be honest, it's a story of tradition. So I think in Ireland, going back several centuries, they probably were trying to achieve a flavor profile that was without many impurities. So the more distillations you do, the more it allows you to remove esters from the spirit or flavors that you perceive as being undesirable. Just one distillation, it's much more difficult to achieve that, which is why fewer distillations generally tends to result in a more whiskey profile, which is a bit rough around the edges. So it depends on your preference. In the US, for example, they tend to only distill their whiskey once, their spirit once, which results in quite a rough taste profile. Can be very sweet as well. So I think it's really a notion of tradition. And in Ireland, we have almost always triple distilled our whiskey. One of the questions in the chat was, is all Irish whiskey triple distilled? There is maybe one exception, but very few. For the most part, they tend to be triple distilled and they tend to be not peated. Recently, with the growth of Irish whiskey, there's a bit more experimentation, but consumers expect of Irish whiskey that it will be triple distilled, and that's become the industry or the category standard, let's say. So I see a few more questions popping up in the chat box. Do you want to call them out, Frank?
Yeah. So Eugene asked, when will you be, well, it's more of a importer question, but he was asking about the 21-year-old coming to the Philippines. That's not really your say, though. It's
yeah, if it was my choice, all of our whiskeys would be available in the Philippines. That's probably a question for our distributor, but I think in time we will have the 21-year-old available in the Philippines. The good thing about Bushmills is that because it's been around so long, we have a lot of stocks of very unusual and aged whiskies. The 21-year-old would be one example where you get a lot of depth of flavor. But we'll see that today in the 12-year-old also.
Okay. And one more question so far is, when will Helen visit Asia?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, which I would love to be able to answer. Given the current context, I'm probably unable to do so. Our plan is that Helen will visit Asia next year. Helen's personality is very soft, and when she does a whiskey tasting, it's very therapeutic. It's like whiskey yoga. So we would like Helen to visit the market soon. And as Philippines is a priority market for us, we would hope that she would visit Manila.
Okay. Oh, and one more question just asked. Do you have an 18-year-old whiskey?
We don't have an 18-year-old whiskey currently in the market. Bushmills has always produced a 16 and a 21. We are considering in the future about having an 18-year-old, but currently it's not in our portfolio.
And I guess that's it for the questions for now.
Well, Frank, just to jump in a little here,
Yeah,
say, well, if you're looking for 21, maybe that is something you can, if Liquor PH is interested, I'm pretty sure that's possible.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll chat with our people, and we'll ask the society too, and see if that's something they're interested in. You know, that could maybe help push it. Oh, 2 questions from Facebook. A few. I should have noticed this. Sorry, I apologize. Chester Surdon has a couple questions. One question is, since the porosity of the wood affects angel share, would it be more advantageous to use less porous wood?
That's a very pointed question. Could be. To be honest, I think that's probably a question for the coopers. I'm not qualified to answer that question. So I will check with our distillery and I will come back.
Second question from Chester would be, does water hardness affect the taste of the final product?
Yes, it does. So, I mean, surprise, surprise, when you look at the product that you're consuming, water plays a key role. So the water quality, if you have soft water, if you have hard water, that will carry through. In the distillation process, some of the natural flavor of the water, whether that be good or bad, can be eliminated or can be changed, modified. But nevertheless, the distillation process, seeing as the boiling point of water is higher than alcohol, water will carry through the distillations and into the maturation process. So if you have a hard water that is with an undesirable taste that can be challenging, that will carry through. You typically want to have a more soft water profile, something that allows the maturation process to let it take its own course. You don't want a water that's too strong in flavor that will dominate or can actually interact with the wood more than you would like it to.
And one more question I see here from Emil on Facebook is, for Oloroso casks, are they specific if first fill or refill to enhance the flavors?
So we use casks up to 3 times. Depends on the type of product we're talking about or the flavor profile we're trying to achieve. So as I was mentioning, we procure our sherry casks from Jerez in the south of Spain. Most of our sherry casks are Oloroso. Oloroso in Spanish literally means full of aroma. We do also purchase other types of sherry casks, but Oloroso sherry would be the most common. And sorry, can you remind me again the specific question?
Yeah, it is. For Oloroso casks, are they specific if first fill or refill to enhance the flavors?
Yeah, in the case of Black Bush, we sometimes use first fill, sometimes second fill, sometimes third fill. Depends on what's available. There is a lot of demand on the part of distilleries to get the right type of sherry profile. So we actually have a partnership with a bodega called Payas Morilla in Spain, and they make the sherry cask specifically for us. So they season it with Oloroso, they might season it with Pedro Jimenez, they might season it with a different type of sherry. But going back to answer the question, it depends. Of course, over time, with every use, the contribution of the cask will be less. But within the first 3 uses, you can assume that you will probably achieve a similar taste profile, especially from an Oloroso sherry cask, where there's a lot of the color and a lot of the flavor profile of the sherry is absorbed into the wood. So it will take a full 3 uses to have that used up in full. So we would use a combination, first, second, and third. We have some products which are exclusively aged in first fill casks, but we have yet to launch them.
All right. Now, before you move on, I just want to remind our watchers on Facebook that only people attending the Zoom class will be able to avail of the actual special price bundle, which will be offered later. And that's the only way to participate in the quiz, which you might be able to win one of 2 different bottles of Bushmills Irish whiskey. So if you guys haven't jumped on, you see the link above in the post. Go and click on, and I'm still letting people in. All right, take it back, Rory.
Thanks, Frank. So to begin with, we are going to taste this whiskey. This is Bushmills Original. Do you guys have this in front of you, or you have a Black Bush or a 12-year-old?
Some people do, some people don't. Some people bought, some people didn't. So,
all right. Well, I won't dwell too long on this product. This is our classic Irish whiskey. First, let's observe the color. If you have it in front of you, I will do the same. So this product, the color is a kind of a light amber in color. It's been aged for between 3 and 5 years. We don't carry an age statement on this whiskey, as it is our entry-level reference. You have an option of adding a little bit of room temperature water to your whiskey, should you wish. This will allow the aroma to come out. It'll oxidize the whiskey a little bit. So I will do so, but I'll nose it first without adding any water. So on the nose, you should get quite a light aroma. You might be used to strong, peated, smoky whiskies, which are very strong, almost a bit off-putting. That's not the case in the case of Bushmills Original. So you might get a little bit of honey coming through, a little bit of vanilla or creme brulee. I'm going to add a little bit of water at this point. Just be careful not to add too much water to the whiskey. Also, the water should be room temperature, not chilled. So once you add the water, you should notice that it really opens up. Now I'm going to taste. We have a rule in Ireland that for every year of maturation, you should allow the whiskey to rest in your mouth for 1 second. So this whiskey is between 3 and 5 years old, so you should allow it to rest in your mouth for between 3 and 5 seconds. Cheers, or in Ireland, sláinte.
Rory, if I may interrupt real quick. That's interesting you mentioned that. For every year, let it rest in your mouth for so many seconds. I've heard that with older whiskeys, maybe 15 and above or 18 and above, for every minute, for every age, for every year, cover the whiskey and let it rest for 1 minute per year. So for the 18, let it rest 18 minutes with a cap on, of course. Would you, with your generous and bountiful experience, what's your opinion on that?
I think some of these are myths, to be honest. I think that, you know, unlike, say, wine, which continues to mature as it matures in the bottle and it continues to evolve, mature, the taste profile changes over time. That's not really the case. So in the case of whiskey, unless you modify the composition in some way, like adding water, it won't change. I think it's more about creating some sense of suspense. One thing in whiskey is that patience is really crucial. The whiskeys we're tasting today were laid down 5, 8, 10, 12 years ago. So most people who work at the distillery, they're very patient. And I think that's something that educators like me try to share with your audience. The idea of waiting for something, building up some suspense, putting your phone away, having the patience to wait for something that's really special. I think it's more about that, to be honest. It's probably a bit of theater more than the flavor profile, I think, unless you change something about the composition of the whiskey, which is one of the strengths, I guess, of whiskey, is that it doesn't go off. There's no expiry date, so it shouldn't change over time. So thanks for a good question, actually, Frank. So I've tasted the Bushmills Original, and once I'm going to taste it again. So it's quite a gentle whiskey. It's very inviting. I find it to be giving me kind of a malty texture. So if you think of what is malt or malted barley and what kind of flavor does that transfer to the whiskey? If you've ever eaten the chocolate Maltesers, and you know on the inside you have malt, ultimately that is the same as malted barley and the flavor profile that gives you. And often it can give you a mouth coating feeling. I'm getting that here. I'm getting a feeling of malted barley on the inside of a mouth with a little bit of honey, and it's kind of sweet also. So it's a very gentle whiskey. It's mild, it's very accessible, and it's a real classic Irish whiskey. On the finish, it's relatively short, but it's fresh, and I get maybe a little hint of spice, but again, it's very gentle. For those of you that have Bushmills Original in front of you, are you in agreement with those tasting notes? Anything else to add? So remembering that this is our classic Irish whiskey, let's say, it has a lot more to it than a brand like Jameson, for example. So I used to work for Jameson. I worked for Jameson for 5 or 6 years. Great brand. The product is very, very mild and quite sweet. Yeah. Bushmills Original is a little less sweet with a malty texture, a bit more malt, stronger malted backbone that you don't have in the case of Jameson. Bushmills Original contains a single malt, whereas Jameson does not. So you're getting a slightly more challenging whiskey in the case of Bushmills Original versus a brand like Jameson. Great. So we'll move now to Black Bush. I'll finish my whiskey. Irish people are known for being very heavy-handed when they pour, especially whiskey. And luckily for me, unlike a wine tasting, I don't have a bucket I don't need to spit any of this out, so I get to enjoy it all. Cheers.
Lanja.
Yeah, Frank is honorary Irish, so.
Hey, my grandmother on my dad's side was Irish, so whatever.
Inherited the drinking habits of an Irishman.
Oh yes.
So now we'll taste Black Bush. I was starting to mention that this is kind of a cult brand. In Ireland, for people that really know their whiskey, Black Bush is an iconic because it contains about 80% of single malt. So it is a blended Irish whiskey, but it has about 80% of single malt. It has a very strong single malt backbone. It's very unusual at this price point to have a product that contains so much single malt. It's also primarily aged in sherry casks, which is why, for those of you that have it in front of you, the color of the whiskey, it's very dark. So it's really appreciated by people in the know. It's highly awarded whiskey. It's a whiskey that can be consumed neat on the rocks with water, or works extremely well in a short cocktail, like an old-fashioned, something like that. I wouldn't mix this a lot. If you are going to mix it with something, make sure to maintain the flavor profile of the whiskey. So here we go. I'm going to open this up. One thing I love about this whiskey is that it contains a cork mouth. So you have that lovely sound when you open the whiskey. It's like a nice ritual.
you're pouring that, I was gonna say, this is not the type of whiskey you would do a, not be politically correct, you would not do a car bomb with.
That certainly you would not be doing any Irish car bomb with this one. Yeah, in fact, no, I would even be reluctant to recommend Bushmills Original for an Irish car bomb. I think it's probably better to put in some nondescript cheap whiskey. But I think I'm not trying to be a snob, but from Black Bush upwards, you really don't want to be cutting the whiskey with a lot, other than max an old fashioned or something like that. It's still a short cocktail where you get to taste the whiskey. Otherwise, you can really not taste to the same degree all of the years of maturation that have gone into producing this product. So now I'm going to move to Black Bush. So straight away on the nose, you're going to notice that there's a lot of flavor coming through here. It's a much more potent whiskey on the nose, a lot more challenging. So you want to get your nose right in there in the glass. Don't be shy. So there's a lot more. If I observe the color, I'm seeing a much darker color profile, which is down to those extra years of maturation. And also the fact that we use a lot of sherry casks. And as sherry is a fortified red wine, even after the sherry has been disgorged from the casks, that sherry redness remains in the casks. And when you put new spirit in there, that color and flavor profile is released into the whiskey. So I would say this is, on the nose, it has a big, full, rich fruitcake aroma. It's much more intense on the nose than a classic or a standard Irish whiskey. Now I'm going to taste. I'm going to taste it first once without adding water. Sláinte.
Slunge.
Oh, wow. There's a real blast of flavor off this one.
Yeah.
So when you move up in whiskey, move up in age, you tend to get a lot of more flavors, waves of flavor. So the difference between a standard product and premium, super premium products is the fact that you have several different waves of flavor. So you might taste something first, then a couple of seconds later, you get another blast of flavor, and then you get a long finish, which is the case for Black Bush. So after getting that big, full, rich fruitcake aroma, I'm getting a more soft or silky texture. I'm still tasting that strong malt backbone. So I'm getting that on the inside of my mouth, I'm getting that maltiness, quite challenging. And then that nuttiness is coming through as well at the end. Do a few people have this in front of you? A couple of people? Okay.
Yeah.
It's I really recommend that at some point you try this whiskey. It's a kind of an iconic cult whiskey for a reason.
Value for money. That Black Bush, man.
Say, pound for pound, there's no better whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah, one nice thing to point out as well is especially at the price points of the original and the and then the Black Bush, is the fact that it's still approachable despite the in spite of the fact that it's full of flavor. And that's something that is kind of unique at that price point, because usually if something's packing flavor and it's not super expensive, it tends to either be really punchy or it tends to be really something not, I wouldn't say hot, but you know what I mean, right, Frank?
Yep. No, for
I
sure.
think you raise a good point, Leonard. What's interesting about Bushmills is that you get a really challenging whiskey at all levels with a lot of depth of flavor, but without having a smokiness that overpowers you or overcomes the rest of the flavors in the whiskey. I think I'm also a fan of Scotch whiskey, but the risk you have with Scotch whiskey at times is that it can be so smoky or so peaty that you can't taste anything else, and it overpowers all of the other flavors in the whiskey. What I like about Irish whiskey, and what I like specifically about Black Bush or the product we're about to taste, the 12-year-old, is that you're getting a challenging, evolved, elaborate whiskey, but without having that smokiness that takes over. And that's what I really like. So you get lots of fruitiness, you get woody flavors, really a lot of different types of flavor in the one sitting or in the one whiskey. So with that, I'm going to move to the 12-year-old. This is
one quick question as you're doing that, as you're opening it up. Someone did ask, do you have like an age range for the Black Bush?
Yeah, it's between 6 and 8 years old. So honestly, we probably could put an age on this one compared to some of the other products that retail at this price point. Between 6 and 8 years old is very fair, but we feel that it doesn't. 6 and 8 years old isn't the key factor that dictates the flavor experience here. So it is between 6 and 8 years old, but it could be 6, could be 8, could be somewhere in between. It depends on the casks that are available at the distillery. It depends on when the desired taste profile is achieved. So Helen, the master blender, will select a bunch of casks. She will combine them in the case of Black Bush, and it'll lie somewhere or fall out somewhere between 6 and 8 years old. So now we'll move to the 12-year-old. This is a new product for us. It's launched specifically for whiskey connoisseurs like you guys. And it's really a special whiskey. It's a triple wood, so we're moving up now all the time. So the first two products, great and all as they are double woods. So they are aged in 2 different types of casks. In the case of Bushmills Original and Black Bush, that is bourbon and sherry. Here what you're getting is a triple wood. So it's aged first in bourbon and sherry, and then recasked in full into Marsala casks. Marsala is a Sicilian wine, which will add a lot of extra depth to the flavor of the whiskey. And it rests for about 9 months in Marsala casks. So it's aged first for 12 years in bourbon and sherry, combined and recasked in full into Marsala casks. So here we go.
Gotta love the pop.
Yeah, can you hear that from Manila? From Philippines?
Yep.
That's special. So this is a single malt. The first 2 products we tasted, while they have a strong single malt backbone, excuse me, they are blended Irish whiskies. This is a single malt, and it's a cracking product. It's really fantastic. Like I mentioned, it's a triple wood. It's aged in bourbon, sherry, and Marsala, and a lot of sherry casks are used in this also. So let's observe the color first. So here I would probably call this a chestnut type color. It's
caramel.
dark. It's not as dark as Black Bush, in fact, I think. And it's not as dark as some of our other products in color. So I would call this a chestnut color. On the nose, again, you want to get your nose right in there. Don't be shy at all. Get your nose in. So I'm getting a very full-bodied aroma. you will get lots of dried fruit here. So the contribution of the Marsala cask is a lot of dried fruit and sherry complexity. You might even get a little bit of, I guess, what you'd call caramelized apple on the nose. Like before, I'm going to try it first without cutting it with any water, and then after I will add some water. Sláinte. Sláinte to everybody in the Philippines. Oh, wow.
Mm.
Yeah. So what you're really getting here is a lot of depth. As you move up in, okay, you're paying that a little bit more, but you're getting a lot extra. There are waves of flavor here. So first I'm getting kind of a rich honey character. Then it's moving into, for me, a more spicy fruit flavor experience. And then it's rounding off with a kind of a nutty taste, I would say. For me, the finish is kind of dry, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A little bit dry, and I'm getting a little bit of ginger, maybe a little bit of pear. So you get a lot of different flavors in the one whiskey. Just you're already getting a really interesting aroma, and then a strong taste and finish experience. So there's a lot in this. Again, I think this is really down to the use of the Marsala cask at the end, which is what ultimately ends up making the product more expensive. Bourbon casks provide the base for the whiskey. Bourbon, as you know, is widely produced, and hence it's very easy to find bourbon casks. Sherry casks are more difficult and more expensive, but Marsala casks, as it's more of a specialized wine. It's available primarily from Sicily in Italy, so it's hard to get these casks. And again, you pay more for them, but that's really what's giving you the special taste experience. I'm going to go again.
Going back for a second on this one isn't a hard choice.
No.
It's like saying, oh, you want to give me money? Okay.
Rory, just so we have a sense of occasion for this, something that I'm not sure of. How often does Bushmills have a new release? Because for the longest time, I've seen that Black Bush, the original, the 10, the 16, and the 21. I haven't really seen anything new, nor do I remember when any of those first came out.
Yeah, that's a good question, Leonard. And I think we're sort of moving now into a little bit of the business discussion, which is good too. So for your context, let's speak a little bit about Irish whiskey as a whole, Bushmills' role in that. Bushmills was part of Pernod Ricard, which is a big French spirits company from 1988 to 2005. And at a time when Irish whiskey was not as dynamic as it is today. So I think the brand didn't maybe get as much love as it needed to. Nevertheless, you will see that there was some good innovation on the part of Bushmills in the late 90s and early 2000s. Okay. Then actually Diageo acquired Bushmills in 2005 and held the brand for about 10 years and grew the volumes nicely, but they weren't committed to innovation and the premiums in the way that they should have been. So now under the ownership of, as you know, Cuervo is the brand owner of, or the company owner of Bushmills. And the company is committed to developing the premium end of the business, which is really ties in well with what we have available at Bushmills. So I think it's more a question of focus. Over the last few years, we've really focused on premiumizing our business. Our strength versus other whiskies is that we have amazing stocks of single malts. incredible stocks. Honestly, it shocked me when I joined the business, and I could see that there were Marsala casks, there were Madeira casks, casks from all over the world, old casks that have been sitting there for years and years, really beautiful whiskies. So our plan is to share those whiskies with the world. We are not as Frank started off, we are not a mainstream choice. We are more a boutique niche brand for now. And I think you will see a lot more action from Bushmills in the years to come. Our intention is to keep Bushmills Original and Black Bush, because the products are widely recognized as being very strong products. But in the single malt domain, in the aged single malt game, we will have a lot of innovation. So you should keep an eye out. We are launching a lot of new products this year across Europe. So Europe is our stronghold still in terms of our business. So if you look online, you'll see we're launching a lot of products, and in time in Philippines too. And this product is a key part of that. We don't have this product available in Europe or anywhere else in the world, not even in the US. This product was launched specifically for whiskey connoisseurs in Asia, like you guys. It was felt that the emerging whiskey enthusiast and connoisseur has a very strong knowledge of whiskey, and they're used to drinking very challenging whiskeys. So that's why we brought out this one as our flagship reference in Asia. So you will see more action from us in the years to come, and we're very committed to premiumizing our portfolio.
Someone did ask a good question. Gentleman, he did his research on the internet. So Mr. Joaquin Lagunera asked, what is the difference between the 12-year distillery reserve and, of course, this particular release, besides, I guess, the whole Asia thing?
Mm-hmm. So there's an interesting story here. Distilleries tend to keep their very best whiskey for themselves. So they'll sell it at their distillery shop. So usually their distillery reserve or your distillery exclusive is one of your most prized whiskies. And when we went through the selection process for Asia, we tested a few key markets, and the product that performed best was what was at the time their distillery reserve. So we've taken that whiskey and now we've made it exclusive to Asia. What you will see online as the 12-year-old distillery reserve is a 12-year-old single malt, but it's not finished in Marsala casks. So that's the difference. The Marsala cask is used for finishing this product, as it was perceived that we needed to have something more elaborate, more evolved for people like you. So that's the difference. The 12-year-old distillery reserve is not finished in a Marsala cask. Otherwise, it's still a 12-year-old, and I know that the label is blue. You will have observed, so it's could be confusing. But there are not many people who are as well read as your participant, so maybe they haven't taken the time. But this product is finished in Marsala casks. Is the difference.
Oh, I'm gonna say, I've had whiskey finished all the way in Oloroso and finished in Marsala. There's a softness that comes about because of the Marsala compared to just 100% deep Oloroso sherry. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with that, Frank. And I can assure your participants, this wasn't choreographed. This wasn't rehearsed. No, that's a good point, actually. So what you'll get from the Marsala is there's a kind of a leveling out that the Marsala does. Oloroso sherry is very powerful. It's very strong. The color, the dried fruits, the nuttiness, that blast, that powerful flavor that you get from sherry casks. It's usually associated with words like robust, full, rich. You get a real blast of richness, and that very much is represented in Black Bush as a product that is primarily aged in sherry casks. So if you look at these side by side, you will actually see that the Black Bush is darker in color, and that's down to the use of primarily sherry casks. And your point is very valid, that when you introduce a Marsala cask, into the maturation process, it levels things out, gives a more balanced flavor profile. And I think that's coming through in the 12-year-old. And it's a very, very good point and well observed.
Someone asked, Chester, who has now joined our Zoom group, thank you for joining, Chester. If you're going to recommend a bottle of Bushmills to someone who's a whiskey newbie, what expression would that be and why?
Very good question. I would recommend Blackwood. You are getting a whiskey which is triple distilled, so it is rounded, it's balanced. Time has been taken in terms of the number of distillations. Remember, it's triple distilled, but yet you're giving somebody a whiskey which is really quite elaborate. It has a lot of flavor profile. It's dark in color, and let's not forget that one of the key indicators when you buy a whiskey for somebody, when you go to the store, it looks beautiful to have a bottle that's really dark in color. You don't want to see a product that's light in color. I would really recommend Blackbush on the basis of the fact that it's still gentle. It's not a beginner's whiskey, but I assume that if they're a friend of one of your participants, that they have a good sense of taste, and that they will be ready for something like Blackbush. You could start at standard level, entry level, but I recommend that you come in straight away at Blackbush. Pound for pound, like we all agreed, it's a fantastic whiskey and there isn't any better.
I'd like to kind of add to that, it's just in general. Bushmills as a brand is something that Frank and I have been recommending for quite a while now to people who ask that question in general, like, hey, I have like a whiskey I'd like to share with my spouse and she's not as into whiskey as I am. Or if I have to share with friends who aren't deep whiskey drinkers, what would you recommend? And Bushmills is one of the most recommended brands we have in that category, just for the fact that it's approachable, but still very, very impressive. And you don't feel like you're gonna be like, oh, I really don't want to serve my 25-year-old something or other to somebody who wouldn't appreciate it as much.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head, Leonard, when you said approachable. You've got a whiskey here which doesn't discriminate. You can drink it neat. You can drink it with a little bit of water on the rocks. You can mix it in an old-fashioned or another classic cocktail. So you've got a lot of versatility there. It has that strong single malt backbone, so it will stand up if you mix it with something. And it's really got a lot to it, and it caters for a lot of people's tastes and needs. So I think approachable and versatile are the operative words here.
Yeah. To add on top of that, approachable without having to add as a mixer, right? You don't need a mixer for this. That's the key. Other whiskeys, it's great as a mixer, or with a mixer. This, maybe, like I said, a bit of water, maybe on ice, that's it. You don't need much, and you get a lot of flavor. I've always been a fan of Bushmills. That's why it's kind of great that we're able to host this today with you, because I've always been a fan, but it doesn't get much fanfare, and I don't understand why. Yeah,
no, it's good, Frank. And in all honesty, when I joined this company about 2.5 years ago, I was joining from Pernod Ricard. So I had known brands like mainstream standard brands like Jameson, Glenlivet, Ballantine's. These were my bread and butter when I was working at Pernod Ricard for 5 or 6 years. And I didn't know Bushmills that well. But once I started to engage with the brand, I spent a month at the distillery learning about the whiskey and the production process, the history of the brand. It's sitting there quietly in the wings. You could call it it's the jewel of Irish whiskey. And we now have an agenda to share the treasures of Bushmills with the world. We feel that with partners like you guys, we're in a position to do that now. And Bushmills is all about whiskey. It's a whiskey distillery through and through. It's committed to innovation, quality, different types of whiskeys, experimenting with old whiskeys, different types of casks. So you will see from us going forward that it won't be as difficult to find Bushmills, and that for people in the know, Bushmills is the right fit. You know, we will never be a mainstream brand like Jameson. That's not. It's a different type of Irish whiskey. It's a premium, super premium Irish whiskey for people who really understand whiskey. It's not a whiskey for mainstream standard consumers.
Let's ask we have one more question before we do our quiz. So Jose Victorino asks, any particular reason why Bushmills doesn't have a cask strength in their core range?
Very good question. You know, I think there are very topical and relevant questions coming up here. We are launching some cask strength products this year. I'm not sure that they'll be available in Philippines in the first instance, but for those of you who are interested, when you go online, you will see, or if you want to pick up with me after this discussion, but in the future we will have those products available in the Philippines. You're right that the market has shifted now. People want to drink maybe less, but they want to drink better. They have a more evolved palate. They want to drink something that's challenging. They don't want to have any additives. They want to have cask strength, non-chill filtered. So this year we are launching some cask strength non-chill filtered products. Maybe something we can arrange through Zai or through Saison is to share some of these special whiskies with you guys, and ultimately we would want to have these products available in the Philippines as well. I think in the past there's no reason why that hasn't been the case, other than it just takes time to bring through innovation. I've worked this year a lot. Most of my job has been working on new product development, and you realize how much time it takes to bring a product to market. You have to a lot of stakeholders. You need to a lot of tasting panels. So you'll have several products. You need to taste, assess the merits and demerits of different products. So it's taken us a little bit of time to address that, but you will see that there'll be a lot of action from Bushmills on the cask strength front imminently.
Nice. And I want to promise our watchers / Whisky Society members, whatever is shown, like, I'll always work with the distributor to make sure you guys get the great stuff that's going to be offered. So if you guys want something that's possibly available, I will talk to the distributor and we'll try to at least make some bottles happen. That's, you know, this is what you guys want, and this is what we try to do.
We want to.
Yeah, this is what we want. I mean, I'm a drinker. I'm a...
anything you guys recommend, again, that's our liquor pH guarantee. Anything you guys recommend, we will definitely drink.
Yes, I will drink it for you guys. Anyways, Leonard, the quiz. Are we about ready, buddy?
So,
all right, everyone.
Up.
As you see, check your chat link. There is a Bushmills quiz. Now, Leonard, go ahead and share the thing so everyone could see. We could see who's joining.
Is that big enough, or?
Yeah, I think that QR code's big enough. Anyways, either scan the QR code or put in www.ahaslides.com/Bushmills. So
yes.
We'll give it about 20 seconds. Then we'll move on to the next slide, which is the joining slide.
And of course, if you are not in Zoom, you cannot participate. So you better get your butt in here if you want to take part.
Yes. All right. 10, 9, 8, 7. Let's move on to the next one to see who's all joining, Leonard. Ooh, I like it already. 29 participants. Can you?
All right. Hold up. Let me, there we go. Waiting for players to join. Let's see who's coming in.
Of course, we got M. Shirley.
Oh, there we go. Wow, we're really.
Well, there we go.
Now, This quiz was done in conjunction with Rory, and Rory did ask us, and we did talk up with society. So this is going to be a slightly harder quiz than what we are normally used to, but I think you guys will do us proud. Note that everything in the quiz was mentioned in the presentation. So
I should add, Leonard, not everything. We
Not everything.
decided that, we knew that there was some serious whiskey people on the call, so I mentioned about 60%, 60 or 70%. So,
Okay.
A little bit there. This is not a simple quiz in the same way that the product is not a simple whiskey. It's for people in the know.
We
Good
did
answer.
modify it slightly compared to how you did it originally because of the fact that I know a lot of people are joining on their phones, so some people might have trouble texting in or writing in an answer. So most of these have been shifted to multiple choice. So
Okay.
that way you can easily tap in.
Yeah.
Although there is one question that does require you to write in your answer.
All right. We have 28. Anyone else before we start going? That's a good amount of people.
Great. Wow. So yeah,
okay.
now someone left. See, no,
Yeah.
that's
Let's give that person a chance to come back in.
yep.
26. Oh no. Why? Don't leave, guys.
Yeah, come on.
We're gonna miss your chance. 25. No.
What did we say? It's not that hard. Come on.
There we go. It's the internet. You know, it's the interwebs. Oh, that's good. 25. Whoa, come on. We're trying to give
Okay,
you a
we got
chance.
26. Jake, are you in there?
Anyone else? Let's give 5, 4,
4.
3, 2. Oh. All right, 5, 4, 3. Come on, guys. I know there's the Philippines, but your internet has to be more stable than that. 5.
Guys, we should have a side hustle to see who you're betting on.
Oh, that's
Over under.
all right. Let's just get going, Leonard. You have 26 and stay
All right.
stable for 10 seconds.
We will be starting in 3, 2, 1, now.
All right.
Good luck, everyone.
I'm excited.
First question should be quite easy. So,
Getting close to finished.
are we all good?
Yeah. And the majority picked. Ooh.
Water of life. It's a good thing no one picked freedom. Thank God. I was about to say.
I got a lot. I kind of dig soothing tonic though.
Hey.
All right. And leaderboard. Jerome, Sexy Shell, Shaw, Joy Mundo.
Oh, that's a big
Biggie,
three-way tie for
nice.
third, four-way tie for third. Oh my God!
Wow. Woo!
Everyone's quick on this.
Quick in the draw.
So these questions vary. It's not going to get easy to hard. It will go back and forth.
Ooh. What year? Bum, bum, bum.
And of course, the license is in the background in case that helps. If people could kind of try to carbon date that paper back there.
Wow, people are taking their time on this one. Come on, guys. Time is of the essence. There we go. And
No, very good.
okay.
The majority is still going strong. All right. So who's going to lead? Ooh.
Wow, Jerome and Iggy tied for first and third. Shirley and
I told you
Jake.
guys we need to make the questions difficult, you know.
So
There's a lot more
well,
time.
we got to motor them up so they get used to typing in quick. So question 3. This one you have to write in, guys.
Write in.
So you have to write in. You have
I
20
couldn't do it
seconds to
right
write
in.
in.
Not
What
gonna
river
lie.
flows through Bushmills?
I'd probably do something like, oh, it's the River Spey, which is in Scotland, right? But yeah.
Yes, we can tell you it's not Pasig, it's not Spey.
The river, oh, the Marikina River. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh,
Ah, very good.
wow. Congrats. I like the Amazon. Not gonna lie. I like that answer. Amazon.
That's why it's called Bushmills. I guess I should have enunciated the bush a little more.
But I'm not gonna lie. Someone did say the River Bushmill, which is oh, look at, of course,
Oh,
Jigs. It's all right. We got Iggy there. We got
yeah.
Iggy.
So this is gonna be neck and neck.
And Francis, he's waiting there.
I have to admit, the top 4 is really close, man.
Yeah, Rainier. I mean,
Yeah.
all right. That's why these are timed. Oh, yeah.
Things are getting serious, guys.
Who has been paying attention?
Who's been paying attention is right.
A lot of Bushmills has been consumed since I spoke about this.
Yeah, exactly. In my belly. Mm. Yum, yum, yum.
Oh.
Hey, man, that's really good.
But no, that's still quite a bit wrong. That's a
Yeah.
bit of a 1/3 wrong. Wow.
I was expecting a much more even response. So that's really good, guys. You guys have really been listening in.
I like it though. It's an equalizer question. Oh,
Oh!
Jigs, man, what are you doing, man? Thought you came to represent, bro.
The fact that the top 3 out of 4 again start with a letter J. I don't know. We still have that weird bias.
Sorry, we got Tony there. I mean, Tony, he's
Creeping up, yeah.
creeping up, man.
So question 5. So what happened to the old Bushmills distillery back in 1885?
That was not. So lucky guess, guys. Lucky guess. Oh, man. That's called an equalizer.
Yeah. Let's see. No.
Oh, I've not so much of an equalizer.
Our crew's really coming through compared to previous quizzes. This is
Yeah.
they really studied up when we told them.
Oh, look at
Oh,
that.
it's
2
still neck
points.
and neck between those 2 guys.
2 points. Wow.
God help me. Maybe I should have really picked those really, really, really scary, tough ones.
Yeah, right? Oh, yeah.
So a little more scientific.
No, but what was that game where there was a kid with a bad leg? It's a popular game about demons going underground. The
I
kid,
assume it's not Never Have I Ever.
no, the kid was called The Answer.
Oh, good.
Oh,
That separates a few people.
yeah.
Everyone separated it out.
Yes, Jerome, exactly. Wirt's leg. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, Francis.
Oh! Wow! Oh my gosh!
Shaw, number 2. Keep it up, Shaw. Keep it up. Iggy's there. Jigs, what are you doing? You're killing me, bro. Jerome, Jose, Tony, you guys are still hanging, though.
Damn. That really changed the
Yeah.
scope of things.
This should be an easy one, guys.
That should be an easy one.
Boom. Timing.
So, providing a little relapse, for, you know, a little pause from the.
Here we go. And there we go. Well, Portugal, guys. If it's fortified wine from Portugal, it's port.
It's also Bushmill 16.
True. Port. Wow, Francis and Shaw. What's going on?
They're still going fast. They're still quick to.
And Iggy is still hanging around. I'm digging this. I'm digging this. I love it. It's going to come down to the last two questions, I think. In what year did U.S. Prohibition end?
Irish whiskey was very popular in going to the U.S.
That's right.
Until Prohibition hit.
Yeah, until
What year?
Not to bring up politics, a Democrat president did put that in. He was not a Republican. He was a Democrat.
Damn you, Bill Clinton.
33. Still 2/3.
Wow. Oh.
And let's see. Oh, Shaw dropped.
Shaw.
But Iggy's hanging around. Francis is staying on top. Jigs, man. You better hope and pray, buddy. 9. Oh, my God.
This one is going to really test.
Yeah, it is. Oh, man. Almost took it to the wire. There we go.
So, Rory, you want to comment a bit on that? The usage of the word pure malt versus, say.
Yeah, I'll definitely add some context here. So, actually, you'll all be familiar with the term single malt. So, a whiskey which is produced only from malted barley at a single distillery. So, malted barley only, single distillery, single malt. You also have very few, but you have a couple of blended malts. For example, Monkey Shoulder would be a blended malt. So made only from malted barley, but produced at multiple distilleries and then blended and bottled at one location. So pure malt is a term that covers both blended malt and single malt. And pure malt was popular back in the day. So back 100 years ago, 200 years ago, the term single malt or blended malt didn't really exist. It was pure malt was the term, meaning that it was made from malted barley only, which was the most important factor. The thing is that some distilleries didn't have the capability to bottle on site. So say, for example, if I had a distillery producing single malt or producing a whiskey from malted barley only, and then Leonard and Frank, they all both have their respective distilleries 10 and 20 kilometers down the road, producing your own whiskey from malted barley only. But I don't have a bottling line, or I have no facility to bottle the product, or I've no warehouse to mature the product. We'll come together. I'll send a truck or a horse and cart over to Leonard's house. Frank will come too with his. We'll combine it and we'll age it in the one place. That would be a blended malt. Oh, but the important thing to note is that Bushmills is a single malt. So it's the purest form of excuse the pun, but it's the purest form of whiskey.
Okay.
Awesome.
Right, Leonard, before we move forward, so we have one question left, guys. Okay. Obviously, we have Francis and Jigs in number 2, but Shot is nipping at the heels. Then right after that, Iggy and Kurt. So there's always a chance. There's
always a chance, guys.
And as Francis knows, there's always a chance. He knows that.
It's always the last one.
So
putting the pressure on.
Hey, this is what we do. I'm the color commentator, baby.
The last question, guys. Get ready.
What cask is not used in Bushmills 12? Not. Oh. Guys, this should be easy.
This should be easy. But this also was one question I wanted to tie in to close out the night, since Bushmills 12 is the star of the event this evening.
And all right.
Oh, there's still 2 people who didn't, still 4 who didn't get it. So let's see how quick we got stuff.
And Francis and Jigs.
It's Francis and Jigs. But considering how close Shaw was, what do you say, Frank? Should we throw in a Whisky Anonymous glass for a third placer?
Yes. Woohoo! Yes.
That was kind of something. It got really tight.
Francis and Jake should not win anymore.
Well, I don't know. Maybe Jigs should donate.
Unfair advantage. Francis and Jigs are geniuses. They should not be in this game.
Well, you know what? Congratulations, Francis and Jigs.
At least Francis won. So congratulations to Francis.
Francis, you win a bottle of the 12-year, and Jigs, you win a bottle of the Black Bush, and Shaw, you will get a Whisky Anonymous glass. You should have one unless you broke it from a few years ago. But Leonard, you can stop sharing, buddy. Congratulations, guys. You guys definitely made this a fun quiz. If you have
One moment while I get ready with the code, because we do have a promotion as well. So
real quick, hold on, before you share, Leonard, while you're working on that, one quick second, guys. Where is it here?
And of course, since you guys keep winning a lot, Francis, you now have a cult following of haters and fans in the society. Francis and Jigs, obviously, please. We'd love to see your faces with the bottles once you get them.
Yes, please. And post on the society, social media. You know how it works. We'd appreciate that. So people that attended our masterclass on Zoom. So you Facebook guys, you should have joined Zoom. Anyways, you'll get a 25% discount on Bushmills bundles plus 4 rock glasses. So when you say rock glass, literally the bottom of the bottle, cut, shaped, sanded down. This is what I've been drinking tonight. So you get 4 rock glasses, 25% off when you buy the bundle. Leonard will share with you
the collection.
On Zoom. Go ahead, Leonard. Go and take over, buddy.
All right. So I am posting it now, and I will also, after later tonight, be sending each of you an email with the link as well again, so that you can take a look. So each of these bundles are individual SKUs. It's just like buying a bottle, except you'll be buying a bundle. The price is already there. Obviously, we'll be checking. So if your name matches up with what as our attendee for tonight, you'll be getting. We'll be greenlighting the deal.
Yeah. And guys, who are attending tonight, you know how Whisky Society, you know how me and Leonard do it. We're gonna have more events in the future. These notes will be looked upon because sometimes we'll have events that we will not express to the public, but these are secret events, great events, and they might even come with a tasting kit that you cannot get on a regular basis. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Rory, did you want to add on anything?
Thanks, Frank. Just a couple of things. Firstly, I'd like to express my thanks to Liquor PH, Frank, Leonard, and Carl. All three of you. It's been amazing working with you guys. Obviously, I'm based in Ireland, so it's 2:45 p.m. here, and I've already had several whiskies, but it's been great. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. And look, Philippines is a key market for us. I've had the pleasure of traveling there multiple times. I know the importance of the market. I know the importance of the whiskey connoisseur there. People like you guys. I've seen a lot of whiskey connoisseurs in Philippines. Don't worry, Bushmills is committed to bringing amazing products to you, starting with the Bushmills 12-year-old. And it's been great. On a parting note, I will say that there is a next level quiz, which we have. So if Frank and Leonard would give us permission to do the kind of extra difficult quiz, I'll be very happy to do that with you guys. And in the meantime, enjoy your Bushmills, and thank you very much.
Yeah, no, if you want.
Oh, we'd love to have you back with an extra. Yeah, it seems that we'll have to put our society to the test.
Yeah, I think you guys made the questions too easy, I have to say. I knew that they were whiskey connoisseurs.
Well, normally we've had quizzes before, and you know, this time around, the group really went above and beyond. I have to admit.
I have to say that I've done sort of education sessions with people in France and Germany and the US, Canada, but this group is really up here. So I think we need to challenge them to really separate the real experts.
Yeah, no, I think so. You know, I'm just so happy that we could do something that is not normally done in the Philippines. You know, I've said this before, I said this again though. I mean, besides just how good Bushmills is, this is just not a normal thing that we get to attend, right? I mean, thank you to Premier Wine and Spirits, our partner, Robin, you know, Zai, you know, everyone at Premier, that Mike Sandvik, can never forget Mike Sandvik. You know, these guys, you know, the guys that don't know, the regular attendees, these are the guys that distribute it in the Philippines. These are the guys that take care of the brand. You know, we're just lucky at Liquor PH and Whisky Society that they saw who we are and what we can do for the brand, what we could do to bring information out.
Yep.
Right? So we'll be more than happy if you see something about Bushmills, if you see something you like, and it's something that possibly could be brought into the Philippines, let us know. We'll communicate it to the brand. We'll communicate it to the distributor and say, guys, the Whisky Society wants something more.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions,
I
let us know as well.
I concur with what Frank and Leonard said. If there's something you want, the consumer is the boss. So if you want something, the good thing is that Frank, Leonard, and our partner in the Philippines, Zai, they have the authority and the influence to make something happen. So if you need something special from Bushmills, then let them know. They can make it happen.
Yeah. And before we sign off, guys, just like normal, Wednesday will be our little drinking Inuman session, Whiskey Forum, but it will start at 10 p.m. For some of you that know, there is an event beforehand, so 10 p.m. is our normal time for this week, but don't fret. For the guys that don't know about the event on Wednesday, there'll be another event next Wednesday, so don't fret. But, you know, I want to thank you, Rory. I want to thank, you know, Bushmills for giving us this opportunity to do this. This has been amazing. Saison, thank you very much. I can't give enough thanks to let me drink on the job.
Cheers to that.
Welcome. You're welcome, Frank. I finished mine.
Cheers to everyone.
Yes.
All right, guys. I'm just gonna stay and drink. If you guys want to stay on, go ahead. If you guys need to leave, go ahead. But I'm just here until last one leaves.